So now we bring in Zach Lancaster of GoPokes.com. How you doing, Zach?
Oh, just fantastic. How are y'all doing?
I'm in a studio, Levi. I'm living the dream, man.
Yeah, it's always great.
Sounds like a horrible dream.
Well,
Working with Levi.
Hey, John Gruden said on the first episode of Hard Knocks, I'm not into dreams, I'm into nightmares. So make of that what you will. But
You're living it.
that's right. Well, before we get into the quarterback battle, I want to ask you about what Gundy had to say yesterday and about, this is who he is. He's now, there was times where he thought about leaving Oklahoma State, but now he knows this is where he wants to be, and also the 2011 National Championship game, which he said they would have beaten LSU. So I'll just ask you up front, do you think that Oklahoma State would have beat LSU in 2011?
I think so, yeah, I do. And it's one of those, it's almost like, what if Gundy had have gone ahead and started Cornelius over Rudolph, in 2014 in Baylor. So it's right up there with one of the greatest what ifs in Oklahoma State history, because did they make the field goal? Did they miss the field goal? If they made the field goal and they go on to beat Iowa State, do they beat Oklahoma as badly as they did? Do they beat Oklahoma at all? I mean, there's a lot of what ifs tied into that, but I think that team was good enough. You look at the receivers, you look at the backs, you look at the defense, you look at Brandon Whedon, who had nearly 76, nearly a 73, or nearly a 77% completion rating. I mean, come on.
Well, Mike Gundy said it doesn't keep him up at night anymore, but it bothers me to this day. I think it bothers a lot of Oklahoma State fans because that what if isn't to be taken lightly. I mean, the program's been on such a great trajectory since Mike Gundy took over, but a national championship would have done a lot of things. But now you just have to focus on 2019.
And before we get into 19, I think, like a lot of people think, that OSU would have beat LSU in that national championship game. But think about where the program would be even if they hadn't have won. Even if they would have had like a Fiesta Bowl type situation where you're going into overtime or it's a super close game and you end up losing, but you go down to the very, very end and you play incredibly tough, and it's like, man, this Oklahoma State team, that's a heck of a team. Even not winning it, what an appearance in a national championship would have done for this program.
Yeah, and I saw some responses on Twitter about how they would have been dominated in the trenches, and I think that's a valid point. But last thing on that is, Oklahoma State, I think you mix in Mike Gundy staring across the field at Les Miles and the SEC disrespect for the Big 12 at the time. Like, I don't think you can convince me that Oklahoma State wouldn't have put up 40 points. Whether they would have won or not, I don't know.
You think he would have stared Les down and ate a big mouthful of grass?
Yeah, that would have been 7 years. I know they're friends and Les Miles is gonna leave, but there's no way Mike Gundy doesn't make that game personal.
No, I'm with you.
So 2019, there's a bit of a quarterback battle. I don't know if you've heard about it, but Drew Brown and Spencer Sanders. Can you make a case for either one of those guys?
No. Not right now. I can make about as good a case as anybody. My boss, Robert, he gets special access to practice, and he's not privy to report on it. Everyone knows that. That's pretty common knowledge. But I think Robert could make just about as good a case, as anybody in the media. Is Mike Gundy telling the whole truth and nothing but the truth that these guys are so evenly matched going into week one that there's just no way to tell them apart? I don't think so. There's no way that these guys are so evenly matched that there's no way to tell them apart. There's strengths and weaknesses for each of the guys. You've got Spencer Sanders, who has an incredible amount of talent. He's really young. He had a fantastic prep career. You've got Drew Brown, who has been through the ringer. He is experienced. He had a successful career at Hawaii. He's got a heck of amount of leadership. All the guys love him. All the guys love Spencer. So, in that aspect, sure, they both have strong arms and they're both fast. But there's no way that they're both so equally matched going into week one. They're like, well, we're going to play two quarterbacks because of it. No, you're going to play two quarterbacks because, and here's my thing. You can get away with using two quarterbacks in the first three non-conference games, but I don't know how successful that's going to be through Big 12 play, especially with Texas in Austin right there to start Big 12 play in week 4. So I think that you can get away with using two in the non-conference schedule, but no matter what these coaches say, you know that they're hoping that someone, even if it's right now or if it's against Tulsa in week 3, someone rises up and takes over that spot.
I agree with you. I don't think there's, Mike Gundy can say it's even, but that is not the way human nature works. Like, there's no way that team, everyone on the team, the coaching staff has a gut feeling one way or the other. Like, that's just how people work. But would you be surprised to see Drew Brown start that first game, mix it up over the 3, and Spencer start in Big 12 play? Because to me, that kind of seems like a Mike Gundy type of move. Give one guy a shot, they both play, and when it really starts to matter down in Austin, you get Spencer Sanders, who a lot of people think is, the next great thing to lead this program. Give him the keys to the program there.
Well, I've said all along that I think Drew is going to start at Oregon State, and it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that, Drew is better than Spencer or Spencer's not ready yet. I think they start Drew. One, Gundy is all about giving a guy who's paid his dues that chance. And I know that it's not like Cornelius, where Drew Brown has spent 4 seasons playing behind somebody here at Oklahoma State. He knows the playbooks. He's been through a couple of offensive coordinators. He's bided his time. But he took a massive chance on coming to Stillwater. I think everyone knew that Cornelius was going to get his shot, whether it panned out or not, and thankfully it did. To take that with a grain of salt. I'm not going to get into that argument.
It's a lot of salt, Zach.
I'll do with that what you will. But the heir apparent is sitting there on the bench in Spencer Sanders. I've seen him play in person, and I know, Tom, if you're listening, I'm not saying that it correlates and translates to college, but at a high level of Texas football, as Spencer Sanders played and dominated for his entire career with 2 rebuilt knees, the kid is the heir apparent. Now, whether that pans out, that's yet to be seen, but he is the future of the program. So with 1 year of eligibility remaining after setting out a redshirt year, Drew Brown took a big chance at coming to Oklahoma State. So I think Mike Gundy is going to give him that shot against Oregon State because of experience, because of the chance he took in coming here. But I think he switches it up. I can see them starting Spencer in either week 2 or week 3, and I think they both get pretty equal play. It just, I don't know, man. I've said all along, and I'm with Robert. I didn't give Drew Brown enough credit, but I've said all along that this is Spencer's team. And I think it's going to be Spencer moving forward. The only issue that I have with 2 quarterbacks, you can get away with using a 2-quarterback system, I think, with like a Mason Rudolph and a J.W. Walsh. When you have 2 quarterbacks that are polar opposites, not that J-Dub didn't have a good arm, but everyone knew J-Dub, his specialty was running. And that's also a bit of a downside, is when short yardage situation, you see J-Dub coming into the game, you know what's going to happen. But if everything turns out to be true about Spencer and Drew, that they each have good arms and they're each very powerful on the ground, which I know Spencer is, and you can see it in Drew Brown. If they're that equal, why play 2? Moving forward, I see him playing 2 in non-conference play, but I don't know if you can get away with that, leadership-wise and trust-wise without throughout the whole season.
Yeah, I think that was a fair point, because a lot of people, when this 2-quarterback system became a real possibility, well, we started out 10-0 in 2015. It's like, well, as you were essentially 2 different positions and we're letting them play quarterback. So, I mean, that's a great point. Is there a reason to be scared going to Corvallis week 1?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I guess any time you go on the road to a completely unknown situation, that there's a chance, that you can be fearful of an upset, but Oklahoma State, I mean, they're unproven at Oklahoma State, but they have the better quarterbacks. They obviously have the better receivers. They have the better offensive line. Oregon State's top defensive lineman is out for the season, tore his ACL. An offensive lineman is out for the season. He tore his ACL back in the spring. So I mean, Oklahoma State just has better talent across the board now, and that they have, the coaching is in staff. They've had Gleason for since January or February or whenever it was that he was announced. Can they put it all together? I think so, because you've got leadership at all the positions. There's always the chance that it could fall apart, but no, Oklahoma State should roll into Austin with an easy 3-0 record.
Well, that first game's going to tell people a lot of things about Sean Gleason, the quarterbacks. You've got your answer in the backfield. You've got Chuba Hubbard. You've got a guy by Tylan Wallace that you're pretty comfortable throwing to, no matter who's throwing it to him. But what is the main difference when you see Oklahoma State play in week one? You go, that Mike Yurcich wouldn't have done that. I get Mike Gundy still the answer to everything. Like, this is his team. This is his offense. But what are the main differences between Mike Yurcich and Sean Gleason?
You're probably not going to see any red zone wide receiver pass.
And that does not hurt my feelings any.
I don't know if you're going to see. I don't know if you're going to see as much stubbornness, and it's a little. It's a bit of a two-edged sword here, because I think everyone knows that Mike Yurcich was a bit stubborn in his play calling, but that stubbornness paid. Whether you loved him or you hated him, Mike Yurcich knew what he was doing. So there were moments where you're scratching your head, like, why in the world would you draw up that play, whether it was an RPO or not, the quarterback's decision or not. There were some situations where it's like, man, I don't really understand that, but it's, him taking a risk. And a lot of times that risk paid off. I mean, look at the record and the offensive statistics under Mike Yurcich. With Gleason, I think he's going to be more calculated. I'm not saying that he's not a risk taker, but I don't know if you're going to see as many risky chances being taken under Gleason. I think it's going to be more of a calculated approach.
Well, the defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles, in his second year, comes over from Duke. Statistically, one of the worst years, and there's not a lot of great years when you look at defensive statistics for Oklahoma State football, but it was bad. The 4.25, but they showed some flashes, especially when they kind of simplified things in the second half of the season. They're young up front. They're still young in the secondary, but those guys, Kobe Peel, Malcolm Rodriguez, got a lot of experience back there at the safety position. Do you think they're leaps and bounds better than they were last year, or just a little bit better?
Well, I think you kind of answered your own question in the sense that there isn't a lot of, it's not like you can sit down and talk for hours and hours and hours about how great Oklahoma State's defenses have been throughout the decades. It's not like you can sit down and talk about all the offensive juggernauts and all the records and all the top 10 finishes, because you're putting up 50, 60 points a game. But I think this defense is going to be improved. I know we all talked to Jim Knowles back at the football media day out at the golf outing at Karsten, and one of the things he had talked about was the fact that he had learned. I know that you have the argument, well, he got here early spring last year, and he had all spring and all summer with his guys to get on the same page, and you got all season. Yeah, that's all well and good, but as soon as you strap it up into Big 12 play, it becomes a totally different animal. I mean, they just don't have the offensive style and schemes and explosiveness that you get in the Big 12 anywhere else. So there was a massive adjustment period. And every guy that we've talked to throughout the spring and throughout the summer and now into fall camp, all the even the younger guys and the older guys, this is their second year with Jim Knowles, and they say that there's just a more comfortability that surrounds this defense. They're more confident, they're more comfortable, They're playing with a swagger. I'm not saying that this defense is night and day different. I'm not saying they're going to go out and they're going to have a top 10, top 15, top 20 type of defense where they're limiting their opponents to 20, 25 points a game. But I think you're going to see those subtle differences, like you're going to see less penalty. You'll see more discipline. And I know that's a team-wide thing, but you're going to see more discipline. The back end, like you mentioned, while young, you got Jarek Bernard, Colby Peel, Malcolm Rodriguez, Trey Sterling, who's older, but he's going to get a chance. You're going to see a lot of experience in those younger guys. I mean, you look at the stats that Colby Peel and Jarek Bernard put up last year as true freshmen. They were fantastic. And then you've got two of the better corners in the league, one of the best in A.J. Green, and you've got a young kid in Thomas Harper who's coming up who's just as good as anyone on that defense. That's what they all say. And you've got Kima Severan another year. So I think you're going to see subtle differences with this defense, but it's going to be enough to where it's almost it almost comes across like, man, this defense is much, much better. But it's because of those small changes that are going to make it seem like it's, a new wholesale defense.
And you had some guys in a complex defense trying to stop guys like Kyler Murray and the high-powered offense that were playing high school football the year before. And that, you just kind of had to feel for those guys.
Peel.
Yeah.
Colby Peel made the game-saving tackle against a quarterback who's in the NFL now. I'm not saying that Drew Lock is going to be the next Peyton Manning, but in an open field against a senior quarterback that's won a lot of games, this freshman went head-to-head with him, stopped him, and that saved the game for Oklahoma State.
And Drew Lock's a big guy too, so it's a pretty good tackle.
He is.
So the last few questions here. Special teams cost Oklahoma State at times last year when it felt like everything was going wrong. Then special teams went wrong too. They've got a new punter. It's from a different country, but he's 29 years old. But you get Hutton in there. How much better is this special teams going to be? Because there's no special teams coach, again, but they've got to be better, you would think.
Well, there's not a full-time paid special team coach, but M.K. Taylor, special teams analyst, has worked with older Australian kickers before. So, going into it right there, that's an advantage. But two, Tom Hutton is not your typical freshman. I know that, we've all heard, he worked 5 years in a paper mill for 10 hours a day, and he's married. But this guy is the talent level that he has, and he's had to understand the game. He's had to learn the game of college football. But the kid can pick it up and put it down with ease anywhere on that field. He is the definition of flipping the field. So, go back to, the 2017 season, and they kind of had that goofy faux Heisman campaign for Zach Seiner. But there was a good reason for it. There was a lot of hype around Seiner. He had a solid year the year before, and people expected him to go out there and put up a quote-unquote Heisman-type season. Tom Hutton can do that. Will he do that? It's yet to be seen, but he has that talent, and he has the maturity of a grown man to not, to go out there and not, shank ball after ball after ball.
Final question, what is the ceiling for Oklahoma State in 2019?
I think that every bit of that hinges on the quarterback. And that's the most obvious response that you could get. But it all depends on the quarterback. Can they find that if they're going to run two quarterbacks, which I don't know if anybody truly wants two quarterbacks, but if that's what they're going to do, if they can find that proper blend and these quarterbacks can be successful, I don't see how they can't put up at least 8 wins. Because you look at the talent they have everywhere else. The offensive line is bigger, it's stronger, it's more mature. The freshmen or the redshirt freshmen are filling in nicely. They have a good balance across the board. The receivers are once again going to be one of the best in the nation. Running backs led by Chuba Hubbard. You got really talented backups behind him. The defense, the back end looks like it's going to be really good. The corners are going to be really good, and you get good defensive line. And that front seven play. You know, the linebackers, can you get decent play out of them? I think there's talent there, but can you get enough? If they can get solid quarterback play, which that's something that you can go back through the record books at Oklahoma State, there haven't been great defenses. There's been decent and good defenses, and you're putting up 10-plus wins. So, I mean, if they can get solid defensive play, I'm not talking great, I'm not talking some of the best in the nation, but if you can get solid defensive play and then the quarterbacks pan out, I don't see how they can't win at least 8.
Well, I think it's going to be a better season than last year, and I think a lot of people feel that way. So thank you so much for calling. By the way, did you have your Steelers hat on when Mason Rudolph threw to James Washington the other day?
That was a heck of a moment, wasn't it?
The second I saw that, I was like, Zach's loving this.
Yeah, I leave my hat in the living room, and it's right here by my chair. So when they play, I'll slap it on, and I think James is going to have. I think he's going to have a really good year. You may not see Mason, but I think James is just getting warmed up.
Well, I think it's better for James that he doesn't have that giant diva in the locker room and Antonio Brown. But
I think that's everybody on that offense.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Well, Zach, we appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been great. Anytime.
Have a good one.